The night was silent. The desert was wide, empty, and cold. Only the sound of the wind moved across the sand. A long railway track cut through the lonely land. It was old, rusty, and endless, like a black scar under the dark sky. On those tracks, someone was chained. It was a woman, but she was not human. Her skin glowed faintly in the moonlight, a pale silver blue. Her eyes were large, reflecting the stars like glass. She breathed heavily, weak and tired, the chains around her wrists and ankles burning against her skin. She had been betrayed. Her own people, the ones she trusted, had brought her here. They chained her to the tracks, left her to die in silence. The punishment was not quick. It was cruel, because they knew what was coming. A train. Far in the distance, a faint vibration trembled through the ground. The rails hummed with energy. She lifted her head weakly and saw a light small and far blinking in the horizon. Her heart raced. The train was coming. Her mind swirled with fear and anger. She remembered the faces of those who betrayed her. Once they had smiled at her. Once they had called her sister. But when she discovered their secret, everything changed. They could not let her live. They could not let her speak. And so they chained her like an animal, left her for the steel monster to crush. She pulled at the chains again and again, but they were too strong. Her skin bled, the metal biting deeper. The more she fought, the more hopeless it seemed. The train light grew brighter. The sound grew louder, the ground shook. She closed her eyes for a moment. Was this her end? Was this how her story would close, far from home, betrayed and forgotten? But then, she heard something else. Footsteps. Not alien footsteps. Not the sound of her betrayers. These were heavier, uneven, crunching against the dry sand. She opened her eyes. In the distance, a figure walked toward her. At first, only a shadow against the moon. Slowly, the figure grew clearer. It was a human, a man wearing dusty clothes with tired eyes but steady steps. He looked like a traveler, carrying only a small bag and a piece of metal pipe in his hand. He stopped when he saw her. His eyes widened. He had never seen anyone like her before. For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the train, louder, closer, faster. The man frowned. What in the world? He stepped closer, shining his flashlight on her. His breath caught in his throat. She was chained, bleeding, terrified. Not human, but not a monster either. Please, she whispered, her voice breaking. Help me. The man looked at her wrists, at the heavy chains. He glanced at the coming train, its thunder shaking the night. He knew he had only minutes, maybe less. But doubt filled his mind. She was not human. What if she was dangerous? What if saving her would bring trouble? He had heard stories. Aliens were not to be trusted. They brought war, fear, and destruction. And yet, her eyes told a different story. They were not the eyes of a killer. They were the eyes of someone betrayed, someone desperate, someone on the edge of death. The train's horn roared in the distance. The ground shook harder. The man dropped his bag, grabbed the pipe, and struck at the chains. The metal clanged but did not break. Again, he struck. And again. His arms ached, but he did not stop. The train was closer now, its light blinding, its wheels screaming against the tracks. The woman struggled, pulling with all her strength as he fought the locks. Her heart pounded. Was this real? Was a human really trying to save her? Finally, with a sharp crack, one chain snapped. She gasped, her arm free. The man quickly hit the second, his hands shaking with effort. Sweat ran down his face. The train was almost upon them now. The horn screamed like a beast. The ground trembled so hard it felt like the earth would split. With one last strike, the second chain broke. She was free. The man grabbed her arm, pulled her off the tracks, and threw them both into the sand. The train roared past, a giant blur of steel and fire. The wind from it nearly dragged them back onto the tracks. The earth shook until the monster was gone, leaving only silence, dust, and the echo of its scream. The woman lay in the sand, breathing hard, staring at the sky. She was alive. Somehow, against all odds, she was alive. The man sat beside her, chest heaving, eyes locked on her. He still did not understand what she was or why she had been chained there. But he had chosen. He had saved her. The woman turned her head slowly toward him. You saved me. Her voice was soft, filled. With shock and gratitude, the man said nothing. He only nodded, still trying to believe what he had just done, but deep inside he felt it. This night was only the beginning, because no one gets chained to train tracks for no reason, and he had just stepped into a story far bigger than himself. What did he do? Desert was silent again, but the silence felt heavy as if it carried a warning. The train had passed. The sound of its steel scream still echoed in the human's ears. Dust slowly settled back onto the dry ground, covering the tracks like nothing had happened, but something had happened. The alien woman lay weak in the sand, her body shaking. Her wrists were red and swollen, cut open where the chains had burned. Her. She tried to sit up but fell back. Her strength was gone. The human man stood, still breathing hard from the rescue. His hands were blistered from striking the chains. He looked down at her, unsure of what he had done. He had saved a stranger, not just a stranger, an alien. Why had he done it? Why had he risked his life for someone who was not even of his kind? He asked himself these questions, but deep inside, he already knew the answer. He could not watch her die. No one deserved that kind of death. Can you walk? He asked, his voice rough. The woman opened her eyes slowly. They glowed faintly like starlight. No, too weak, she whispered. The man looked around. The tracks stretched into the horizon, endless and empty. There was no town, no house, no light. Only sand, stone, and the silent night. If she stayed, here she would die before morning. He crouched down beside her. Then I'll help you. The woman blinked at him in confusion. Why? The man gave a half smile, though his face was tired. Because you're alive. That's reason enough. He lifted her carefully, supporting her weight against his shoulder. She was lighter than he expected, though her body trembled with pain. He could feel her heartbeat, fast, weak, but still there. Together they began to walk. The desert stretched around them, endless and cold. Above, the stars burned bright, sharper than knives. The human did not know where he was going, only that he had to move. If the ones who chained her returned, they would not stop until she was dead. For a long time, neither spoke. Only the sound of their footsteps broke the silence. Finally, the woman whispered, "You are human?" "Yes," he answered simply. Her head turned slightly. "Strange. Humans are feared, hated by many. But you saved me." The man glanced at her. "Not all humans are the same. Maybe not all aliens are the same either." She was quiet for a while. Her eyes, still glowing faintly, stared at the sand as if she was remembering something painful. Then she whispered, "I was betrayed by my own people. They called me traitor because I wanted peace." The man frowned. "Peace?" "Yes," she said softly. "They build weapons for war against your kind. I spoke against it. They chained me, silenced me." The man's jaw tightened, so that was the truth. She was dangerous not because she hated humans, but because she refused to hate them. Her own people turned against her for it. He looked at her with new respect. "So they tried to kill you and let a train do the work." She nodded slowly, her eyes filling with sorrow. "They thought no one would see, but you did." He tightened his grip around her, helping her walk faster. "Then they were wrong. You're still here, and as long as I'm here, I won't let them take you back." The woman turned her head toward him, studying his face in silence. She had never seen a human this close. His skin was rough, his hair messy, his clothes worn from travel, but his eyes were steady, filled with a strange kind of strength she had never known. For the first time since her betrayal, she felt a spark of hope. Suddenly, the quiet desert was broken. A sharp sound split the night, the howl of engines. The man froze. He knew that sound. It was not the train. It was something else. Something faster. The woman's eyes widened in fear. They are coming. He turned his head toward the horizon. In the distance, lights glowed like fireflies, bouncing and racing closer. The sound grew louder. Hoverbikes, moving fast. They found us, she whispered, her voice shaking. The man's heart pounded. He had no weapon, no plan, only his will to survive. He pulled her close. Then we run. He guided her off the tracks into the shadows of broken rocks scattered across the desert. The lights behind them grew stronger. Alien voices shouted through the night. The hunters were close. The woman struggled to move, her legs weak, but the man did not let go. He pushed forward, half dragging her, his breath burning, his muscles screaming. Behind them, the sound of engines roared louder and louder. But in that desperate moment, something powerful formed between them, a promise unspoken. He had saved her once, and he would do it again. Because this was no longer just about survival. This was the beginning of something far greater, something both humans and aliens could not yet understand. And the hunters chasing them had no idea. They were about to ignite a story that would change everything. The desert night was no longer silent. Engines roared behind them, lights flashing across the sand. The human pulled the alien woman into the shadows of broken rocks. They crouched low, breathing hard, while the hunters swept past on their hover bikes. Dust clouds rose and alien voices echoed in the distance. For a moment it seemed they had escaped. The man glanced at the woman. She leaned against the rocks, weak, her chest rising and falling in sharp breaths. Sweat glistened on her pale skin, and her glowing eyes flickered like fading stars. "You need water," he muttered, reaching into his bag. He handed her a small metal flask. She took it slowly, her trembling hands clutching it as if it were the most precious treasure in the universe. She drank, and for the first time since he found her, a little color returned to her face. "Thank you," she whispered. The man nodded. He looked over the rocks again. The hunters were circling, searching. They wouldn't give up. He knew they had only minutes before they were found again, but he also knew something else. He needed answers. He could not keep running without knowing why she was hunted. He turned back to her. His voice was firm. "Who are you? And why do they want you dead?" The woman closed her eyes. She was silent for a long moment, as if fighting inside herself. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but heavy with truth. "My name is Soraya," she said. "I am not just a woman of my kind. I was once part of their council. I saw things. I heard things. And I could not stay silent." The man frowned. "What things?" She looked at him, her glowing eyes sharp now, filled with pain. "They are building a weapon to enslave your people, to enslave all humans." The man froze. Her words hit him like a hammer. "A weapon?" he repeated, his voice low. "Yes," Soraya whispered. "Not one of fire or steel. Something worse. A machine that enters the mind. It breaks the will, controls the thoughts, and turns every human into a slave of their empire. No blood spilled. No war fought. Only silence. Obedience. Chains inside the brain." The man's chest tightened. He stared at her in disbelief, but her eyes told no lie. "And you tried to stop them?" She nodded slowly. "I spoke against it. I told the council it was wrong. I begged them to stop, but they laughed. They called me a traitor. They said I loved humans more than my own kind. And so, they chained me to the tracks. They wanted me erased, forgotten." The man clenched his fists. His anger burned hot, not just at her people, but at the cruelty of betrayal. He understood, now. She had not just been punished. She had been silenced for daring to defend humanity. He looked at her with new respect. You risked everything to protect us. Her lips trembled. And now, I have nothing. No home, no allies, only enemies. In the dark, the man shook his head. Not nothing, you have me. Soraya's eyes widened. She stared at him almost as if she could not believe his words. You would stand with me? Even knowing who I am? He gave a small, tired smile. I don't care what you are. You could be human, alien, or something else. What matters is what you choose. And you chose to protect lives even when it cost you everything. That makes you worth saving. For the first time since her betrayal, Soraya felt warmth in her heart. Her voice cracked. You are different from the others, different from the humans my people fear. The man's eyes hardened. Maybe that's what scares them the most, that humans can still choose courage, even when the universe tries to break us. Before Soraya could answer, a sudden flash of light lit up the rocks. A search beam swept across the desert. The hunters were close again. The man cursed under his breath. No more hiding. We have to move. He helped Soraya to her feet, her body still weak but her spirit stronger now. Together they slipped into the shadows, moving along the jagged stones. The hunters shouted, their engines roaring like wild beasts. Soraya leaned close to him as they moved. Her whisper was urgent. If they capture me alive, they will not kill me quickly. They will take me back to the council. They will force me to give them everything I know. And then, she shivered. The weapon will be unstoppable. The man's jaw tightened. Then we can't let that happen. Her eyes shone in the dark. No, we must destroy it. He stopped for a moment, staring at her. Destroy it? A weapon built by an alien empire. How could two fugitives alone in the desert hope to fight something like that? But then he remembered the chains breaking under his hands. He remembered the fire in her eyes when she spoke of peace. And he realized something. Impossible or not, this was his path now. He nodded. Tell me where it is. Tell me how to stop it. Soraya's voice was low, filled with gravity. It lies in the stronghold of my people. A place hidden deep within the mountains, guarded by soldiers, machines, and lies. Few have seen it and lived, but I know the way. I know its weakness. Man took a deep breath. He felt the weight of her words, the danger ahead. But he also felt something else, purpose. For the first time in years, he was not just wandering. He was part of something bigger. He tightened his grip on her arm, guiding her through the night. Then we'll go there, and we'll end it. Above them, the stars blazed brighter as if listening. In the shadows of the desert, two unlikely allies made a silent promise. They would not run forever. They would fight, and the truth Soraya carried would change the fate of two worlds. The desert exploded with noise. Engines screamed through the night, lights flashing like angry eyes across the dunes. The hunters were close now, circling like wolves around prey. The human grabbed Soraya's arm and pulled her down a narrow slope of broken stone. Dust spilled beneath their boots, sliding them toward a dry ravine. The engines roared above as hoverbikes swept over the ridge, beams of white light cutting through the dark. Faster! The man hissed, keeping his body between Soraya and the danger. She stumbled, her legs weak, but forced herself to move. Her chains were gone, but their scars burned with every step. A sharp crack split the night. A plasma shot hit the rocks near them, exploding into blue fire. Shards of stone cut across the ground. They've seen us, Soraya gasped. The man cursed under his breath. He pulled her behind a boulder as another blast shook the air. The hunters shouted in their alien tongue, voices sharp and cruel. The man looked around quickly. He had no weapon, only the broken pipe he had carried. Against hoverbikes and plasma rifles it was nothing. But he had something else. His mind, his courage, and the land itself. Stay low, he whispered. Soraya nodded, trusting him. The hunters came fast. 3 hoverbikes slid into the ravine, engines growling. Their riders wore black armor, their helmets glowing with red lines, their rifles aimed straight at the rocks where the fugitives hid. The human pressed Soraya flat against, the stone waiting, timing the moment. His heart pounded like a drum. One bike rushed close, its beam sweeping. The rider leaned forward, scanning. Now. The man leapt out, swinging the metal pipe with all his strength. The strike hit the front of the bike, smashing its sensor. Sparks burst. The rider shouted in shock, the bike spinning out of control. It crashed into the rocks, exploding in fire. The blast shook the ravine. Soraya shielded her face, the heat burning against her skin. The other two hunters roared, their rifles spitting light. Bolts of plasma tore the air where the human had stood. Seconds earlier, he ducked behind cover, dragging Soraya with him. "They won't stop," she cried. "I know," he shouted back. The hunters dismounted, their boots slamming the sand. They came closer, rifles ready. The human breathed hard. He had only seconds. He looked up the slope and saw loose rocks, heavy boulders balanced on the edge. An idea sparked. "Can you walk?" he asked Soraya. She nodded weakly. "Then climb. Get up that slope. Push when I say." Soraya hesitated, fear in her glowing eyes. "And you?" He gave her a thin smile. "I'll be here making them angry." Before she could protest, he shoved her toward the slope. She crawled upward, pulling herself hand by hand. Her body trembled, but determination burned inside her. The hunters advanced. Their red visors glowed in the dark. The human stepped out again, pipe in hand. "Looking for me?" he shouted. His voice echoed across the ravine. The hunters turned, raising their rifles. He threw a rock, smashing one rifle aside. A blast shot, wild, into the sky. The other hunter fired at him, but he rolled, the bolt burning into the ground where he had stood. "Now, Soraya," he shouted. At the top of the slope, Soraya shoved with all her strength. The boulders groaned, then tumbled. Down he crashed, the rocks smashed into the hunters, throwing them to the ground. One was crushed under the weight, his rifle sparking as his armor cracked. The other rolled away, injured but alive. The human rushed forward, kicking the fallen rifle aside. He slammed the pipe against the last hunter's helmet. The alien collapsed, groaning, his bike spinning out uselessly nearby. Silence returned, broken only by Soraya's heavy breathing. The man looked up. She stood at the top of the slope, trembling but alive. He raised his hand, signaling her to come down. When she reached him, her eyes glowed brighter than before, not from fear, but from something else, respect. "You fought them with nothing," she whispered. "Nothing but your courage." The man wiped sweat from his brow. Sometimes courage is enough. But even as he spoke, the faint hum of more engines grew in the distance. Dozens this time. The hunters had called for reinforcements. Soraya's face paled. "They will not stop. Not until I am dead." The man clenched his jaw. "Then we don't wait for them. We keep moving. We take the fight to them." Her eyes widened. "You mean to the stronghold?" He nodded. "Yes. If what you said is true, if this weapon exists, then running won't save us. We have to destroy it." Soraya looked at him for a long moment. In his eyes she saw fire. Not fear, not despair, fire, and in that fire she felt something awaken inside her. Hope. "Then I will guide you," she whispered. "To the mountains, to the weapon, to the end." The man tightened his grip on the pipe, staring into the dark horizon where more lights approached. "Good, because if they want to chase us..." He smiled grimly. "Then let them chase us, all the way to their own doom." Together they vanished into the night, two shadows against the endless desert, hunted but unbroken. Behind them, the engines grew louder. Ahead, the mountains waited, along with secrets that could change the fate of two worlds. The desert finally grew quiet. After hours of walking through sand and stone, the engines of the hunters faded behind them. No lights chased them now. The night was still, the stars sharp and endless above. The human stopped on a ridge, breathing hard, sweat dripping from his brow. Soraya leaned against a rock, her body trembling from exhaustion. But her eyes, those glowing silver eyes, were Steady. She looked at the horizon where black mountains cut the sky. There, she whispered. Beyond those peaks. That is where the weapon waits. The man followed her gaze. The mountain seemed lifeless, just jagged stone rising like broken teeth. But her voice carried a weight that made his skin crawl. He sat down on the sand beside her. Tell me everything. I need to know what we're walking into. For a moment, Soraya was silent. She closed her eyes as if gathering courage. Then she spoke, her voice low and heavy. My people call it the crown of silence, she said. It is not a gun, not a bomb. It is a network of machines linked together by living minds. It was built in secret, deep in the mountain stronghold. It is designed to reach across stars, across planets, into the thoughts of every human alive. The man's chest tightened. Into our thoughts? Yes, Soraya whispered. Once activated, it spreads like fire through air. It does not kill. It does not destroy cities. It simply breaks the human will. Your people will feel nothing at first. Only peace, only stillness. But that peace is a chain. They will obey without knowing. They will kneel without question. An entire species, enslaved without a single drop of blood spilled. The man felt a chill run down his spine. He clenched his fists, anger burning. And your people call that victory? They call it mercy, she said bitterly. No war, no fighting, only silence. But silence is death in another form. It is the death of freedom, the death of choice. I tried to speak against it. I told them it was wrong, that it would destroy both our peoples. They called me weak. They called me a traitor. Her voice cracked. She turned her face away, hiding the shimmer of tears in her glowing eyes. The man's jaw tightened. And that's why they chained you. Not because you were weak, but because you were strong enough to resist. Soraya looked at him, her lips trembling. She saw no mockery in his face, only fire. Fire she had not seen in years. Why do you care? She asked softly. You are human. My kind has brought your people nothing but pain. You could leave me here. Walk away. Save yourself. The man leaned forward, his voice firm. Because freedom matters, not just for humans, for anyone. If we let them use this, no one will be free. Not me, not you, not anyone. For a long moment, Soraya said nothing. Then, slowly, she nodded. Then we fight. Together. The man gave a small, grim smile. Good. But if this thing is real, we need a plan. Where is it? How is it guarded? Soraya's eyes darkened. The crown rests inside the fortress of Veyran. It is hidden deep inside the mountain, powered by crystals of thought energy drawn from living prisoners. Thousands of guards protect it, soldiers, hunters, machines, and worse. She paused. It is not yet complete, but when it is, no human will resist it. The man's stomach turned. How long do we have? Days. Maybe less, Soraya whispered. The council rushes its creation. They know the humans are growing stronger. They want to end you before you can rise. He stood, pacing in the sand. Then we'll get inside before they finish it. We'll destroy it. Her eyes widened. You speak as if it is simple. A fortress carved into stone, soldiers trained from birth, machines that do not sleep, and a council that fears nothing. Man looked at her, his eyes hard. They fear you. That's why they chained you. That's why they hunted you. Because you stood up to them. And now they'll fear both of us. For the first time, Soraya gave a faint smile. It was small, tired, but real. You are either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both, the man said, sitting again. But I know one thing. If we don't try, then it's already over. They sat in silence for a while, the cold desert wind brushing against their skin. Above, the stars burned brighter, as if listening. At last, Soraya spoke again. Her voice was softer now, almost fragile. When I was chained to the tracks, I thought it was the end. I thought no one would ever hear my voice again. But you came. A human, of all people. Perhaps there is still hope. The man looked at her, his face steady. Hope is dangerous, but it's the only weapon we have. Soraya lowered her head, whispering almost to herself. Then let us carry it until the end. Far away, in the darkness of the mountains, faint lights flickered. The fortress of Veyron waited, hidden among stone and shadow. Inside, the crown of silence pulsed with a dull glow, its power growing stronger with every hour. And across the desert, two figures, one human, one alien, walked toward it, bound by betrayal, courage, and a mission that could decide the fate of both their worlds. The fortress of Veyron rose out of the mountains like a black wound in the earth. Sharp towers cut into the night sky, glowing faintly with red light. Heavy gates of steel and stone sealed its entrance, guarded by soldiers in dark armor. Hover drones circled above, their beams slicing the air like watchful eyes. The human and Soraya crouched in the shadows of a cliff staring at the stronghold. The desert behind them was silent, but here the air hummed with power, like the fortress itself was alive. Soraya's voice was low, almost a whisper. Inside those walls lies the crown of silence. Once it is activated, your people will never be free again. The man's jaw tightened. His hands gripped the metal pipe he still carried, though against such defenses it felt like nothing more than a stick. Still, his eyes burned with fire. Then this is where we make our stand. Soraya's eyes glowed faintly. We must move fast. There is only one way in, through the drainage tunnels beneath the fortress. They are narrow, dangerous, but less guarded. He gave a small nod. Then lead the way. Together, they crept down the slope, the moonlight brushing their backs. They moved like shadows, careful, silent. At the base of the fortress, Soraya pressed her hand against a hidden stone. A faint shimmer appeared, revealing a small grate. "This is it," she whispered. The man helped her pull it open, and they slipped into the darkness below. The tunnels were cold and wet. The sound of dripping water echoed against the stone. The air smelled of metal and rot. They moved carefully, the man's hand steadying Soraya when her steps faltered. But then, footsteps, voices, guards. The man pushed Soraya against the wall, holding her close as the sound grew nearer. A beam of light cut through the tunnel. Two armored guards walked past, their rifles glowing faintly. The man's grip tightened on the pipe, his heart hammered. He knew what he had to do. Before Soraya could stop him, he stepped out. With one swift strike, he smashed the pipe against the first guard's helmet. Sparks burst, the guard collapsing with a grunt. The second spun, raising his rifle, but the man lunged, slamming the pipe into the weapon, knocking it aside. He shoved the guard into the wall, striking again until the alien fell silent. Breathing hard, the man looked back at Soraya. "Quiet enough?" She stared at him, amazed. "You fight like a soldier." He shook his head. "No, just a man who refuses to kneel." They pushed deeper into the fortress. The tunnels opened into a vast chamber glowing with sickly green light. And there it was, the crown of silence. It rose from the floor like a giant crystal web, dozens of wires stretching. From its core, at its center, a pulsating stone of pure light beat like a heart. Around it stood alien priests, chanting softly, their hands raised in ritual. But worse were the cages. Human prisoners sat inside, their faces blank, their eyes hollow, tubes connected, their heads to the machine. Soraya's face twisted in horror. "They are already testing it," she whispered, "using human minds to power the weapon." The man felt rage burn through him, his fists tightened. "We end this now." But before they could move, a voice rang out behind them, "Going somewhere." The man spun, his heart sank. It was one of the hunters, the one who had survived the ravine. His armor was cracked, his visor shattered, but his rifle was steady. Behind him stood more soldiers, blocking the exit. Soraya's eyes widened in dread. "No," she whispered. "It's a trap," the hunter laughed. You think you could hide from us, traitor? You think a human could save you? Foolish. He raised his rifle, aiming at the man. Soraya stepped in front of him. No. Take me, not him. The hunter sneered. Oh, we will take you, and we will break him. His mind will power the crown, just like the others. The man's grip on the pipe tightened. He knew he could not win this fight. Too many soldiers, too many guns. But Soraya moved first. Her eyes blazed with silver light. She raised her hands, shouting words in her own language. The ground trembled. Energy sparked from her fingers, slamming into the guards. They screamed, their rifles flying from their hands. Run, she shouted. The man grabbed a fallen rifle, firing wildly into the chamber. The priest scattered, the cages rattling. He sprinted toward the crown, firing again and again. Plasma bolts struck the wires, sparks exploding. The machine pulsed violently, its heartstone flickering. Soraya screamed, pushing her power harder. Her body shook, blood running from her nose. The guards tried to rise, but her energy pinned them down. The man reached the core. He raised the rifle, aiming at the heartstone. His voice thundered across the chamber. For freedom! He fired. The heartstone shattered in a burst of blinding light. The crown of silence screamed, its wires tearing apart, energy ripping through the chamber. The cages burst open, the prisoners collapsing free at last. The fortress shook as alarms wailed. Walls cracked, the ceiling splitting. Soraya fell to her knees, her strength spent. The man rushed to her, pulling her up. Together they stumbled through the collapsing chamber as fire and stone rained down around them. Behind them, the crown of silence burned, its light dying in the rubble. They burst back into the night, falling onto the mountain slope. The fortress. A Varen roared behind them, flames spilling from its towers. The ground shook as the mountain swallowed the weapon forever. The man held Soraya in his arms. She was weak, her breath shallow, but her eyes still glowed faintly. You did it, she whispered. The crown is broken. He shook his head. We did it. Together. For a moment they lay there in silence, watching the fortress burn. The night sky stretched above, wide and endless. But in Soraya's heart she knew it was not the end. For every weapon destroyed, another waited in shadow, and somewhere across the stars, her people would not forgive this betrayal. The night was quiet again. Too quiet. The fortress of Varen lay in ruins behind them, its towers broken, its gates melted, its heart, the crown of silence, shattered into ash and sparks. Smoke rose into the sky, curling like black fingers into the stars. The human sat on the cold slope of the mountain, his chest heaving, his body bruised. The metal pipe he had carried since the desert lay bent and broken beside him. Beside him, Soraya lay weak, her skin pale, her breathing shallow. The glow in her eyes flickered like a dying flame. Yet even in her weakness, there was something stronger in her gaze than before. Peace. It is gone, she whispered, her voice soft. The crown will never enslave your people. The man looked at her, his face hard but tired. We destroyed it, but at what cost? She turned her head, staring at the burning fortress. Her lips trembled. My people will never forgive me. To them I am not only a traitor now, I am a destroyer. They will hunt me until the end of my days. The man placed a hand gently on her shoulder. Then they'll have to hunt both of us. You're not alone anymore. Her glowing eyes widened slightly. For a moment she said nothing. Then a faint smile touched her lips. A human protecting me. How strange the universe has become. The man gave a small chuckle, though it was filled with exhaustion. Stranger things will come, I'm sure. They sat in silence, the cold wind brushing against them. In the distance, freed prisoners, humans who had been trapped inside the crown, wandered through the rubble, their minds still clouded but their chains gone. Some looked lost. Some cried. Some simply stared at the stars with blank wonder. The human rose slowly, his muscles aching. We should help them. They need guidance, food, safety. Soraya nodded weakly. Yes, they must be led away from This place before the council's soldiers' return. He offered her his hand. She took it, her grip fragile but steady. He pulled her to her feet, and together they began to walk among the freed. The night stretched on. Hours passed. The fire of the fortress burned lower, glowing red like dying coals. The prisoners gathered in small groups, huddling for warmth. Some whispered prayers. Others clung to each other, afraid of being alone. The human moved among them, speaking gently, guiding them to safe ground. Soraya watched him from a distance. His strength was not only in his arms or in the way he fought. His strength was in his heart, the way he refused to give up, the way he refused to let others fall. Her chest ached, not from pain but from something she had not felt in years. Hope. When he returned to her side, she whispered, "You risked your life for me again and again. Why? Why do you fight for someone who is not even your kind?" He looked at her, his face calm. "Because freedom is not about kind, it's about choice. You chose to fight for us even when your own people betrayed you. Now I choose to fight for you." Her eyes shimmered. For a long moment she could not speak. Then she whispered, Perhaps I was wrong about humans. Perhaps you are, stronger than my people ever feared." The man smiled faintly. "Humans are at our strongest when we're protecting others, but as the first light of dawn touched the mountains, something strange broke the silence. A sound, not from the wind, not from the prisoners. A low hum, soft at first, then rising. The human froze, his head lifting. Soraya stiffened, her glowing eyes widening. From the ruins of the fortress among the smoke and rubble, a faint pulse of light rose into the sky. It was not fire. It was not sparks. It was something else, something alive. The pulse flashed once, then again. Then it shot upward, vanishing into the stars like a signal. Soraya's face paled. "No," she whispered. The man grabbed her arm. "What is it? What did it do?" Her voice trembled. "A message. The crown may be destroyed, but the council planned for this. If the fortress fell, the signal would be sent. Not just to my people." The human's eyes narrowed. Then to who? Soraya's lips shook. Her eyes, glowing faintly, reflected the rising dawn. To something worse. To those who gave us the knowledge to build the crown. To the ones who wait in the dark between stars. The man's heart pounded. "You mean there are others?" She nodded slowly, her voice almost a whisper. "Yes. My people were not the first to design such weapons. We only followed the path others showed us. And now, they will come." The wind blew cold across the mountain. The human stared at the sky, where the signal had vanished. His fists tightened, so destroying the crown was only the beginning. Soraya's hand touched his arm. Her voice was soft but filled with dread. "If they come, humanity will face a danger far greater than chains of the mind. And I fear they will not come with mercy." The man met her eyes. "Then let them come. We'll be ready." For a long moment, they stood together, side by side, staring at the sky. The fortress of Veyron smoldered behind them. The prisoners whispered around them. The mountains loomed silent, but above the stars held secrets, and far away, something in the dark had already heard the call.